Wow, did ChatGPT really say that? What was your prompt to get ChatGPT to say that? Hey, Coding Garden community, I just tuned into the stream and I'm loving the content. Keep up the great work and happy coding. That's insane. Okay. Generate a Twitch message for Coding Garden stream. Are you kidding me? It said Coding Garden community? That's not good. That's really scary. Not scary. It's just like, it's all happening so fast, it feels like. Yeah, no, exactly, Codex. And I mean, we're going to talk about that, like will it replace coding and stuff like that? Like, it'll definitely be something that potentially speeds up people's works and maybe like augments people's work, but I don't think it'll fully replace coding. I hope AI replaces the parts of my job that are just uninteresting and let my brain do what it's best at. Yeah, and I mean, if you think about technology in general, across all time, that's kind of what it has done. Like it frees up a lot of like more like manual labor, less important labor, so that we can focus on the things that humans are good at. Oh, it's down. It's down. I can't look at it. So hey there. A lot of people are checking out ChatGPT right now. We're doing our best to make sure every person has a chance to try it out. So please check back soon. Oh well. Okay. Well, let's talk about it for 7 minutes. Give me your opinions in the chat. What are your concerns? What are your thoughts on ChatGPT? And I guess to give a little bit of background, it comes from the same people that did DALL-E and DALL-E 2, where you could give it a prompt and it will generate images based on that prompt. So it's from the same team, but now ChatGPT, you basically can just talk to it, and it's kind of scary how real and human it feels. So basically, it gives you a prompt where you can ask it a question, you can give it a prompt to say like, we're going to do this thing, and it will respond, all right, I'm ready to do this thing. And every conversation you have with it is in context. So you send messages, and all of those, the next messages you send it, it can keep track of the previous messages. So you can have an actual dialogue with it. And so Nishark is saying, I just used it to complete a paper for a general education course. So you could say something like, hey, ChatGPT, we're going to write a paper about X topic. And then it will respond, okay, I'm ready to write a paper about X topic. Where should we start? And then you give it a starting point and it'll respond. It's kind of insane. I saw one post on Reddit where somebody generated a new language with it. And not a programming language, but like a spoken language with grammar that's like based on slimes, like goops and stuff. And it's crazy. It's crazy. It gets a lot wrong, but it's very cool. Yeah. So that's what ChatGPT is. It's basically like an AI chatbot that you can have a conversation with that knows a whole lot of things. And Tanner has a point here. AI assistants in code are like automation tools and autopilot in a plane. It helps a ton, but you still need a pilot to fly the plane. I think this is a great comparison because like pilots aren't going anywhere, right? I mean, I guess I don't know how big the industry is or how many pilots are actually employed, but planes have a whole lot of automation, but there's still an airline industry and there's still pilots that pilot those airplanes. Now, I guess you could say that pilots don't necessarily have as much prestige as they used to, because it used to be that like being a commercial airline pilot had a lot of prestige. Not necessarily anymore, but still, they still have jobs, even though the plane is completely automated. So people asking about, like, do I think it will replace coding? I don't think so. I think it'll be a tool that we use to help us code better. And a tool that will help us not have to deal with all the mundane things. Clippy AI, I see that you're writing a distributed microservice. Yeah, and I think the point that Codex had earlier is the more complex things that aren't necessarily exactly code are going to be a lot harder for like an AI or Copilot or ChatGPT to figure out. Like designing an architecture for a scaled system or something like that. Why hire a front-end dev to generate a web app? Well, you can just give design and get the web page instantly. Yes, but I think so. There are different aspects of web development, right? There are like basic. When I worked at a consultancy, we called them brochure websites. Basically, websites that are purely informational and are typically driven by a content management system. Those types of websites you can already replace coders for those types of websites, like because there are like WordPress plugins that make it so that people that don't know how to code can just drag and drop sections and can automatically. There's already an admin panel where they can update the site without code. Like that kind of thing essentially has already been replaced. If somebody wants something really custom, really bespoke, they're gonna hire a front end dev, but that isn't the kind of front-end dev that I typically do. Like I build applications. So I am a software engineer that uses web technologies to build applications. And that's very different from just a website with some content on it. When you think about like interactive applications, think of like Gmail, or even like a modern Reddit, or like TikTok in the web browser. Like those types of things aren't just a website. It is a web application that has state and multiple interactions and complex things that you can do. And to me, that is very different from completely front-end dev. And I do not think that right now ChatGPT could generate something like that, because that's a very complex process that isn't just about front end. It's also about all of the back end API design and the interaction between the front end and the back end and the database design and all of that. And I think we're pretty far from AI being able to take on that. So like that's my perspective on it. Like, sure, it's going to replace the easy stuff, like a landing page with a email sign up form. But the more complex things with complex architectures and complex user interactions, it's going to be really hard for that to be completely automated. It can generate NPC flavor text for my D&D games. Yeah, I guess that's the other thing. You could say like, "Hey ChatGPT, I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons," and I mean, you honestly could have like probably have a conversation with it where you're literally almost like playing a text adventure game or something like that. It can do all of your school homework for you, right? But I think here's the thing. Like, I never liked school. I never liked doing homework. I was always searching for shortcuts. I was also always searching for ways where I wouldn't have to do the homework. And to me, that's really just like the tinkerer hacker mindset of like doing as little as possible to get the thing done. Now, obviously, there are some benefits to like doing homework and practicing specific topics, but for a student like me, there's a lot of times I didn't want to do the homework, so I would do everything I could to not do my homework. Wolfram Alpha is a thing I used a lot in college because it can do like calculus and stuff like that. So that's a thing. AI trains on our open source code. Sure, but it's like, here's the other aspect of AI that like keeps it as a barrier for things, is that the people that created the AI don't even understand how it's coming to the conclusions that it's coming to, right? So most of it, all of it is based on neural networks, and it's basically like a little black box. Now, you could say, well, do you actually have to know how it works in order for it to be useful? I guess not. But at the same time, because of that, it can do some really silly or dumb things that to us look like a human would never make that mistake, or a human would never do something as simple or as dumb as that. And we don't necessarily have a way of looking at and understanding why it thought to do it that way. Now, but that also gets to the problem of and thinking about like what does it mean to have consciousness? Like, is an AI conscious? And like, or like, will it ever be? Like, will we ever completely match human consciousness? I don't think so. I think all of these AIs that we create are each doing one thing like really well, and I think you can have like a collective system of artificial intelligence that make up something that's closer to human consciousness. I think AI will not replace intelligence until we understand our own mind. Yeah, and that's kind of the point that I'm getting at, is like, we don't even understand how consciousness in humans work. I mean, to an extent, like we try to understand like the brain chemistry and stuff like that, but like there's a lot of things we don't understand about consciousness itself. So it's crazy to think that we could create something that could replace ourselves when we don't really even understand ourselves. I don't know. Humans too stupid for computers to understand. Yeah. Used it to migrate Mongo to MySQL. That's actually really cool. But the thing is, like, this task right here, I would argue, and I would think that, yeah, that's totally fine. Like, I am okay with AI replacing jobs like this. Like, if it takes a programmer that's getting paid over $100,000 a year to write a script that converts from a Mongo database to a SQL database, I think that can be replaced, because it's just like busy work, right? It's not anything too original. You're kind of just like mapping from one thing to another. Yeah, and I'm not saying database administrators are useless. I'm saying that is a task that overall is a fairly simple task, that if you can automate it so that you can spend your time doing other things like optimizing queries or coming up with better structures for your database and stuff like that. That's really all I'm saying. If AI helps with migrating databases, they'll make you migrate 2 databases instead. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like this just goes like this is like a parallel to one of the first things I did in the first internship I ever had. I was an intern. I was a system administrator intern, and my job was to help upgrade websites. And part of the upgrade process was converting from MySQL to Postgres. And they literally had a script that said, when you're doing the conversion, well, not a script that you would run from the command line, a script as in things you need to do step by step to migrate this database. And I saw that and I was like, that should just be code. So I literally converted that into a script that you could run that would automatically migrate the database instead of having to run all these manual commands. That was like one level of automation. The next level of automation is like, I don't even have to write that script. I can just tell the computer to do it. But you still need me to tell the computer to do that. ChatGPT just built my entire app in minutes on his experience building an Angular. Let me just look this up really quick. ChatGPT just built my entire app in minutes. I asked ChatGPT to create a to-do app in Angular and it provided me with an unexpectedly accurate answer. How do I create a to-do app in Angular? Okay. Is that it? Did he give it any further prompts? I see. Okay. How do I create a new component called to-do list? Sure. How do I create a form? Okay. How do I use ng4? Sure. How do I create a function called talk? So here's the thing. Like, here's my takeaway from, I mean, obviously I haven't watched the whole video, but my takeaway is he wouldn't have been able to do this if he didn't already know how to make an Angular app, right? The kind of prompts that he's making is someone that already knows how to do these things. Now, I'm not saying it's not cool or not useful. What I'm saying is that this is essentially human assisted, right? Like, he had to know what he wanted and he's being very specific about it. Now, I mean, you could argue that potentially you could come up with, like less specific prompts and it could still know what to do. But the way that he's handling it, to me, it's no more than just like copying and pasting from a tutorial, right? And in a way, you could think of like, you could create really good learning tools with ChatGPT that can like take the contents of an article and convert it into a more interactive way to learn. And I think that's really cool because people learn better in that way instead of just like copying and pasting the code or whatever else. Yeah, and I guess the thing that iBaldi is coming up with is like if you add natural language into it, now you can just talk to a computer and tell it to build a to-do app, right? Cool. So if he had the same point in the video, that's great. I haven't watched it yet, but I'll definitely check it out later. And actually, I can link to it if anybody else wants to check it out. And that's what I'm thinking happened, Robert Table. So in that example of that video we were watching, like, it looked like it followed a tutorial, but the cool thing about it is like it took a written form tutorial and turned it into like an interactive dialogue between the article, the lesson, and the person learning. And I think that actually would be a really effective way for people to learn things. So be a very useful mentor. Yeah, I think that's exactly the point that came across in the video. You could ask how to do something and it could suggest you technologies and frameworks, etc. Right? I mean, also imagine even more human assist on that, right? So like a student or a learner makes a prompt, ChatGPT comes up with a response, and then you have an actual expert that validates that response before sending it back to the student. But like that relieves the work of the expert or the mentor because they don't have to come up with the whole thing. They just have to validate what the AI came up with. Actually, that's one of the prompts that I gave ChatGPT. I was like, give me a list of startup ideas for an education company. And one of the ideas was an AI assisted mentorship thing. I could see that like that's a full product idea right there, right? Like you still employ a team of experts that can validate the output of the AI, but now an expert can basically mentor like 10 times the number of students because they don't have to focus on each individual student. And like those are the kind of things that I'm excited about, right? Because as someone who's worked in education and like worked in a classroom, like it's really hard to give individualized instruction to 30 different students, right? It has to be typically more general because we only have so much time in the day and I'm only one person. But if an AI could come up with their learning plan and like, what do they need to do next? And then I just need to quickly skim over it and validate it. Like that frees me up to mentor and help even more students, you know? You never like school. Me too. A lot of people don't like school. Well, it's tricky though, because like for me, when I was in school, like and I mean, typically how I learn is if I watch the instructor do it, I can do it. Like I've watched them, I've seen them do it, and now I've internalized that. So I didn't typically need as much repetition and practice for homework. Now, not all subjects were that way, but that's just how I was. And so for me, so much of school just felt like a waste of time. I remember when Wolfram came out and everyone thought I was going to do artwork too. I mean, it did my calculus homework, but yeah, neural networks are millions of little black boxes. Let's say we can say you don't need junior devs now, just teach AI. Yeah, I think flip the problem though. I think now it's going to be easier to train more junior devs, right? I think that's kind of the point I was getting at earlier. Like now one senior or one mentor with the help of AI can help and train more people than they could before. So I think it's a way to get people to learn faster. The thing that just came to mind is in the modern Star Trek movie where they're showing the 2009 movie starring Chris Pine. This Star Trek. There's a scene where they go to Vulcan, and it's like all the Vulcan kids are like in this little they're like in the ground in like this circular thing, but they're learning, and it's like projected screens all around them, like feeding them information and stuff like that. Like I see that as a possible future. Like that is a possible way for us to now teach kids, right? Like obviously it sounds very disconnected because they're not in a classroom in seats anymore, but it's a potentially a much more effective way to transfer information to a human brain if you have an AI assisted way of doing that. But anybody know what scene I'm talking about? Like they cut to his planet, and like it's all these kids, and they're like it kind of is an AI that's like feeding, it seems like it would be, is feeding them that information for them to learn everything. Yeah, exactly. So like they're learning like calculus and quantum physics and all that stuff. But all of that to say is that like I think if you can have the right mechanisms for teaching that kind of thing, and also like an AI could potentially try to find the best way to get that information across to a human, then yeah, I think younger kids can learn more complex topics earlier. Is this the scene? Yeah, this is it. But yeah, they're like in this little dome thingy. I mean, if you think about it, like the motion graphics that they did is a lot of times in movies, it's purely for show, right? Because it's like, how effective would that really be of like data floating around you? But I imagine it as more of like a 3 or 4 screen monitor, right? And then you have like lots of information at your that you can access very quickly. I don't know. This is what ChatGPT is going to let us do. That's all I'm saying. I guess my summary of the whole topic is it's really freaking cool, and like it's kind of amazing that we're alive at a time when something like this is happening. But as someone who is more technical, right, and is an expert in various coding and technical things, like I know there are things that ChatGPT can't do on its own, but it definitely could augment my work or augment other people's work. And I think that's a good thing as well.